Well, hello there, and welcome to today's video in which I will be discussing commissions, starting commissions, what my experience has been, what I've learned along the way as I've started commissions, and yeah, so let's get started. So the main reason why I wanted to do this video is because I started taking paid commissions this year, and I really didn't think it would happen this soon. I always thought you had to have like at least 1,000 followers before opening commissions and getting any bites, especially on Instagram where there's just so much, and it's honestly really hard to find artists on Instagram, but it happened, and as of right now I have less than 300 followers. So I figured this would be a good video to talk about, to tell people like you don't need a huge following to start getting paid for your art. And I started doing adoptables back when I had like 150. So definitely you don't need to wait until you have a bajillion followers before you can start getting paid for art. Okay, I realize I'm rambling already. I'm gonna reel it in and talk about what I meant to talk about in the first place, which is how I prepared to open commissions, how I started doing paid commissions, and some things that I've learned doing my first few commissions. And of course, in the background are a couple of the recent commissions that I've done, so hopefully that's enjoyable. But yeah, I'll start with how I prepped. So naturally, the first thing that I did before starting commissions was go to YouTube, actually. I found quite a few good videos talking about how to prepare for commissions, but the best one that I kept going back to again and again was made by Naughty Axel. I don't know if you know her already, but she's pretty popular, and she has a mini series about starting commissions and getting prepped for them that are really helpful. I mostly learned like how to do terms of service and stuff like that from YouTube. So, if you're here to learn about starting commissions, you're off on the right foot, right track. Anyway, you're doing good. The next thing I did to prepare for doing commissions, kind of in concurrence with my research, was doing Draw This in Your Style challenges. This is a super popular challenge and hashtag, so you're probably familiar with it. But basically, it's almost like a commission. You're drawing someone else's character, and I think practice drawing someone else's character is really helpful. I found it really important for learning like how to stay on model, if that makes sense, how to draw the character like it's supposed to look and not changing things to make things easier. For example, if the character in the Draw This in Your Style has curly horns and you have trouble drawing curly horns from like the angle that you chose to have the head at, it's not like you can just make the horns straight. You have to draw them curly. You have to figure it out. And I think that is one of the best takeaways from doing Draw This in Your Styles that I ever got. When I think of prepping for commissions, at least on the art side, I basically think about it like I'm drawing with more and more restrictions every time. So Draw This in Your Style, you can choose any pose, any background, but you have to stay on character model. So that's like one restriction. And it's not too hard of a restriction. And for Draw This in Your Style, if you make a mistake, go off model a little bit, there's not a lot of punishment that's going to happen. You're not going to make someone upset. Usually the people running the Draw This in Your Style will like it anyway because it's free art of their character. So there's almost no pressure for a Draw This in Your Style. The next step up for me, the next thing that I started doing was doing non-money commissions. So for this, I would specifically do commissions in Flight Rising. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that website, but if you Google Flight Rising, you'll find it. It's the first hit. It's like this dragon pet site dragon hoarding site, where there are forums where people can advertise their commissions. And a lot of people do commissions for Flight Rising currency, like the currency from that little pet website. I think this also was a really important step, maybe even more important than doing draw this in your styles, because for these non money commissions, you basically have to act like it's a money commission, you know? The only difference I would say is there's less pressure, basically, because it's not real money, but it's sort of money. Yeah, I feel like you get what I mean. So, for non money commissions, obviously, you kind of have the added restrictions of, you have to consult your client for the pose and background they want if you're doing backgrounds. But I think the most important thing that I learned doing non US dollar commissions was how to communicate with a client. I know it sounds like really fancy to consider someone who's paying you fake money to do art a client, but I think it kind of helps to think of them this way because, I don't know, it helps you practice getting into this mindset of like, I want to do something good for my client. I don't know. It's how I think of it, and I think it's fun. So that's what I'm going to tell you to do. Anyway, yes, I learned through this how to work with a client. I realized that art commissions are more of a collaboration than you off on your own doing art, and it's actually really fun. You get to bounce ideas off of each other, but also you run into places where maybe you have a miscommunication or you don't understand what they mean, and you have to like go back and redraw stuff. And I think that experience is really important in preparing for money commissions, because no matter if the person is paying fake money or real money, people are people, and you're gonna run into communication issues, you guys disagreeing on ideas, stuff like that all the time. Or maybe not all the time, but it's gonna happen, and you have to figure out how to deal with it and figure it out. But yeah, so focusing the rambling a little bit, it's really good to practice figuring out what people mean when they just type something and then you have to visualize it. That's really good practice. And then it's also really good practice dealing with like constructive criticism, I guess. Dealing with if you've drawn something and they're like, oh, that's not what I meant, or like, actually, that is what I meant, but I changed my mind and I'd rather you do this. As artists, we're usually like proud of what we have created and we're like, oh my gosh, look at this thing. I like it. And if the other person is like, that's not really what I meant, or actually I've changed my mind, sometimes it can feel like, oh, I did that work for nothing, or like, oh man, why couldn't I have just read their mind? But you just, you've got to redraw it, and you kind of learn, at least I learned through this process, that it's like, oh, we're not always gonna agree on everything, or I'm not gonna immediately understand what they mean. And yeah, you just gotta work through it and redraw stuff sometimes. And it's not bad. Like, it doesn't mean they don't like your art. Otherwise, why would they commission you in the first place? It's just, different than creating something on your own, being like, okay, I like this, post it, or move on to the next stage, and we're done. You have to have that consultation and edits and stuff like that. Oh, and one more thing that I just remembered is it's really nice to practice drawing something from a reference that you haven't drawn yourself in terms of doing the non-money commissions. Like, I didn't realize how much I would be like, wait a second, is this like a horn or just a patch of a different color, until I started doing these non-USD commissions. And, it's okay if you assume wrong. You just have to ask or be like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize that's what it was. I'll redraw it real quick and Yeah. Okay, moving along to starting commissions. I don't really have a ton of advice for this other than make sure you have your terms of service ready to go and your prices ready to go, and don't back off on your prices. If someone asks for a discount, just maybe say, just wait until you have the money. I think it's not really a good practice to have wiggle room in your terms of service or your prices. It's just, I don't know, maybe that's a personal thing, but it's something I would advise. Otherwise, you'll get more people coming to you asking you to move more from your terms of service or your prices, and yeah, it's not something I want to deal with, so I advise against it. All right, on to my main advice for starting commissions. Sometimes you have to look for them. So, one thing that was helpful for me was asking my family and friends if they wanted a commission, and that for that I did offer a discount because they're family and friends, but still it's good practice working with a client again. And the other thing that was, I think, really a good idea was looking for people who are looking for art, if that makes sense. So I mentioned Flight Rising before. I actually went on Flight Rising's art forums and I would respond to people who posted threads where they were looking for art and put my hat in the ring, and I actually got a commission that way, and it was really fun, and yeah, it worked out. Lots of people might be familiar with more furry related sites like Fur Affinity. I'm sure there are forums on Toy House where they have like looking for art stuff. I haven't looked into it too much. Maybe I will in the future, but if you go places where people are looking for art, naturally you'll be more likely to find people who are looking for art. And the last piece of advice I have for the section on starting commissions is sometimes it takes a little bit of time after you make your post. I think I ended up getting one a few weeks after making that post. I was disappointed at first that, they weren't rolling in, but again, if we're talking about advertising commissions where people are looking for art actively, I was mainly advertising on Instagram, and there's, the large percentage of people on Instagram aren't actively looking for art that they're going to pay for. So it might take some time for people to find you and decide they want to commission you and stuff. Even a couple months after I made my post and I had commissions open and everything, I started getting a little bit more people who wanted to be repeat customers, stuff like that. So don't worry if no one's biting. It just takes time. And yeah, in the meantime, just have fun. Do commissions for currency from sites that you like. Maybe do commissions for Steam games. I know people do that a lot. And, just develop your skills. That's what I did while I was waiting. And I ended up finding an art style that I really liked when I had the freedom to just paint whatever I wanted. So there are plus sides to not having an immediate influx of commissions as well. Okay, now, what probably my favorite part of this video, I get to talk about my experiences doing commissions and stuff I learned and will pass on to you, whoever is watching this. So something that was really underscored doing my first commissions was that it really is a collaboration with the client. Ask for their ideas. They usually have really cool ideas. For example, in the piece that I'm working on in the speed paint right now, it was the commissioner's idea to have a purple blue toned plant foliage behind the character, because the character's from an alien planet where most of the plants are like purple, and it worked really well with the lighting scheme that I was already going with, and I was having some trouble envisioning the character with green plants anyway, and they said, oh, the plants should be purple. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's going to look so good. I can continue on with this like bluish lighting that I'm going with. And it turned out really cool with the color combination of everything. So that was awesome. This kind of leads into asking the person stuff about their character, like their character's background. So with this piece, the character lives on an alien planet, which was really cool backstory, and helped us figure out what the background should look like. And the piece that I did for another person, the first speed paint of this video, we talked about the character being kind of a more like motherly figure. She has like an altruistic, nice disposition and is probably predisposed to helping people. And the eventual idea for the piece ended up being she's kind of relaxing in her element, which is water. And it just, knowing about the character, just, I don't know, it helped fit everything together, and it helped create a mood for the piece. And I just thought that was really cool. On a more practical note, slightly, knowing the personality of the character can help you come up with facial expressions, poses, stuff like that. So definitely ask and learn about the character that you're drawing. Another one of the biggies that I learned doing these commissions is try stuff. Don't say like, oh, I've never done this before, so I'm not sure if I want to do it. Just go for it, because a lot of the way we learn in art is by trying to do something. And you know, what the heck, someone's paying you to try it. So yeah, and again, if it doesn't end up working out, they commissioned you in the first place because they liked where your skill level is at already. So no worries, just, yeah, be brave, try stuff. And now that we're getting more towards the end of the video, a few smaller things that I learned that I liked to do when doing commissions is starting with multiple sketch ideas and letting them pick, because I'm indecisive as heck, and I don't know, it's just nice for me to not have to make that decision. And another thing that I like to do is suggest edits. So often what I'll do is I'll send my progress, and then I'll ask specific questions like, oh, what do you think of the coloring? What do you think of the lighting? Should I make this area brighter? Do you want the lighting stronger? Like, it helps me to ask specific stuff, because I mean, coming from a person that's pretty shy, like sometimes people might feel too shy to suggest the edits that they really want, and they'll just kind of settle. It's not a bad thing, you know, they'll be happy with it in the end, but it can always be better, you know. And my final piece of advice, just do it, you know. If you wait to open commissions until you're perfect, it's never gonna happen, because we're human, we're never perfect. So go out and do it. You don't need to have 1,000 followers even. You don't even need to have 500 followers. You just have to have, you know, the will to do it. So that's my advice. Go forth, do some commissions. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Oh my gosh, I ended up timing this video weirdly well. I feel like that's never happened to me before. Okay, anyway, stop rambling, Ash. Thanks for watching. I hope to have more videos like this in the future as I learn more about commissions, maybe a video specifically about terms of service, pricing your art, etc. Okay, thanks for watching again, and I'll see you around.